Hello everyone, it's nice to see you again. Thank you, Obena, for the great presentation. Today, I'm very delighted to be here to talk about something that I'm very passionate about. As Obena said, I'm a musician, but nowadays it's very important that all artists and in the entire population of the planet is familiar with the concept of copyright. So today I'm going to do a brief introduction to copyright. I'm sure most of you are already familiar with the concepts. And then in the second part of my presentation, now I'm going to focus on the digital standards that are currently evolving and developing in the music industry. Yeah, as Obena said, I'm a musician, I'm a producer, music producer, graduated here at the National School of Bulgaria plenty of years ago as a piano performer and piano tutor. Ever since then, I'm working as a producer. Right now, I'm award-winning producer, and I have my music released globally by labels such as Universal, Sony, and so on, the major labels. How I got into copyright was actually when I was 14 years old. I realized that playing the piano was quite boring in a way for me. Although my teachers really wanted me to become a classical piano player, I realized that creating content, creating music on the computer was much more interesting. So at 14 years old, I started writing kids' music, and two of my songs went on a festival here in Bulgaria, and they won an award. And a little bit later, this festival was broadcast on media, and one of the organizers came to me and told me, "Did you want to collect your royalties, your fees from broadcast?" And up to this moment, I didn't know that actually everything that's broadcast in terms of music, films, and any other artistic works are receiving remuneration, so-called royalties. And I went to receive my royalties in the Organization for Collective Management of Copyright. So my first touch with the subject of copyright was when I was 14 years old. I was lucky enough for this to be early enough. Later in my life, I familiarized a lot of colleagues with this concept. There were a lot of colleagues who were seriously in the industry. They were already working as musicians, but they weren't familiar that they have to collect their royalties. So yeah, that's how I got involved into copyright. And the first slide that I have is some general introduction of the copyright. Obviously, the copyright is a concept which is protecting not only music, but also literature, films, theater, also architecture, software, industrial design. So there are four different forms of copyright. Obviously, copyright, which is protecting the literature, music, films, theater, and so on. Then you have trademark, which is the industrial copyright. These are brands, logos. I'm going to cover this in details in a little bit. Trademarks. Then you have patents. These are inventions such as, for example, this digital camera that is filming here. I'm sure it has at least 10 patents already created for it. And trade secret, this is again corporate protected content, which is secret, and it's actually the one that is helping the corporation to create profit. I'm going to cover this in a little bit, but as an example, I will give you the popular brand Coca-Cola, where not only one type of copyright is actually included. First of all, you've got the patent, which is for the bottle shape. This is unique and is protected. No other brand can use this particular bottle shape. Then they have a patent on actually how the drink is produced. So you have something that is special and unique that nobody else can use in the world so far because it's patented.
Is it also trade secret?
The trade secret is on the formula, and that's because you don't know what's inside, and only Coca-Cola knows what's inside. So that, again, it's protected by copyright. And then you have copyright on the logo, on the advertising and the promotion. So basically Coca-Cola had to protect so many assets in order to create this drink that sells and it's unique and nobody else can manufacture in the world. So that's the concept of overlapping IP protection, but today we're going to focus mostly on artistic works and music, and I would like to start with why do we need copyright? Obviously, the main objective of the intellectual property is to encourage innovation. So for me as a musician, I spend a lot of time studying music, and it took me time to get to where I am. Some may say writing a song looks easy with me, but it's actually, it took more time than that. And the copyright is the mechanism which is helping to provide incentive to the creators, and it's essential for the innovation in our society. Without copyright, nobody would be incentivized to create anything. And also, it's helping to recover this research and development investment which we have invested in order to achieve a copyrighted work or a copyrighted models. A lot of people say, I hate copyright, this is horrible, I can't open this video on YouTube because of copyright. But actually the concept is really important. And are there any alternative of copyright? Currently, maybe some of you have seen Creative Commons. It is considered as an alternative to copyright, although it's still within the copyright rules. So basically the Creative Commons is an American non-for-profit organization which is encouraging sharing of knowledge, sharing of intellectual property, and people who decide to release their works, this can be photography, this can be scientific articles, it can be films under Creative Commons, they decide to license it to the society under Creative Commons. Basically, the aims of the Creative Commons non-for-profit organization is to actually expand the range of creative work available. What's special about it is that the copyright owners, the right holders of such works which they choose to release under Creative Commons, they don't receive remuneration. They release it for free. There are 3 types of license, but all of them are non-for-profit. And they also allow, of course, just let me finish, and they allow everyone to reuse their work, provided that they attribute the authorship of this work. It means that if I release a song under Creative Commons, you can release it, rework it, but you have to say that I'm also an author included in your derivative work, the one that you're creating using the Creative Commons license. However, the Creative Commons licenses are built upon the copyright law, so this is not an alternative, it's just a different type of use of copyright. So now, please, you can...
Copyright is related to something which is profitable, and Creative Commons are non-profitable. Am I right?
Non-for-profit, yeah. Copyright can also be non-profitable. Basically, it depends on the the creator and the intention of the creator. For example, copyright is the law which is protecting the work, is defining the rights of the right holder. And Creative Commons is rather type of license. It's not an alternative. Like a type of license. In copyright you have for-profit license, and this one is non-for-profit license, which is very, very useful for educational institutions like yours. And basically Creative Commons is still encouraging innovation, reuse of copyright, because let's say under copyright, Michael Jackson's music is protected. You cannot use it without the authorization of Michael Jackson and all the rest of the right holders, because I'm going to touch on that later, but basically you need authorization in order to use it commercially and non-commercially. Under Creative Commons, you don't need authorization by the rights holder, because they already assigned Creative Commons license.
So you can use it.
You can use it. If you see the double C logo, you can take this one and use it, reuse it, but the only requirement is for you to attribute the authorship of the original author.
So you can derive something from the original.
Exactly, and including, you can sell it. Actually, there's no restriction.
Of these DJs included under that license?
No, the DJs...
they use the songs, many songs.
I will explain later. I'll touch on that. If you're interested on that, I'll let you know how this licensing works, particularly to DJs and clubs. But the significance of copyright is basically the inventor, no matter whether it's this creative work or it's invention, like a camera model or something, they invest the time and the effort into research, and from the idea to innovation, there is a process. So basically, what is important is that the idea is protected under copyright. It means that it's property of whoever created it.
Is it in order to prevent plagiarism?
As well, yes. So there are a few main aspects of protection. One is the attribution of authorship. So the author has to be mentioned every time. For example, if you release a CD, you must say who is the composer, who is the lyric writer. If you release a book, you must say who is the writer of the book, who is the editor of the book. These are obligatory, they're compulsory. You cannot avoid that. And plagiarism, of course, that's a big issue as well. It's protected under the copyright law. Then this is limited in a way. Some patents are limited to, I think, 20 years, depending on which was the country of registration. The general duration of music and literature is 70 years after the death of the author. After 70 years, the work is becoming a public domain, as we call it. This means that everyone can use it without being accused of plagiarism. Obviously, after 70 years, they will not need to attribute the authorship anymore. And the copyright law is designed in a way to strike a balance between the private interest of the author and the public interest, because it's important that we have the innovation, we have the cultural development, and this duration of copyright is exactly because of that. The public has the right to eventually benefit of the cultural development, and it's considered that 70 years is right now the longest term of protection in the world after the death of the writer. If there are two writers, for example, it would apply after the death of the last surviving author.
Who applied for it?
That's the law. So basically, copyright is a private ownership right. You cannot rely on the government to protect your own copyright. In the same manner as if you leave your car unlocked on the street and someone steals it, you cannot blame the police that they did not protect your car. You left it unlocked. So that's why it is important, every one of us, to have consciousness about their own copyright. Because today, we're all rights holders. I don't know if you actually realize, but every time you publish a photo on Facebook, on Instagram, this is your own copyright. Nobody has the right to use that. By publishing it on Instagram, you actually grant Instagram a license to use and monetize your photo. And they actually earn money from your copyright. And it's not just the photo, but it's also what you type on Facebook as a status. Sometimes you go and type very long essay. And that's also protected. Copyright is protecting ideas, inventions, music, films in any form. There is no limitation in the form, as long as it's innovation, as long as it's new, as long as it's not plagiarized from somewhere else. You're the author of that. And because we touch on the duration, I want to speak about the Mickey Mouse rule. This is a term that's used by even very, very serious copyright lawyers in the world. The Mickey Mouse rule is basically related to the duration of the copyright. So initially, when the Copyright Act in America in the past century was invented long ago in 1890s something, the initial duration of the copyright was 18 years, only 18 years. So ever since then, the Walt Disney Corporation lobbied so many times in front of the American Congress in order to extend the duration of the copyright, and now we reach the point where it's synchronized around the world, Europe and America, 70 years after the death of the author. So what happens here is, in 2023, Mickey Mouse is no longer going to be protected unless the Congress changes the law again. So they have very little time to make amendments to the law. But in general, from next year, we'll be able to print the image of Mickey Mouse, sell Mickey Mouses, and use that. In 20 years, the same will happen with Beatles, for example. Hopefully, they'll be all alive. But in general, some of the copyright that's attributed to John Lennon, for example, is already about to expire in a way. It will expire rather soon. Elvis, the old catalog, is gonna become a public domain soon, which is a very interesting fact.
This is very good in terms of the future, because the music that is coming from that time is really high quality music, and I think it's becoming modern now, and it can be used for any kind of, clubs and public.
I hope they would know the value of those kinds of songs, because they only just listen to rap songs, R&B's.
Yeah.
And I have never seen that
but
guy.
As soon as this copyright expire, it could be much more easily disseminated, and so that's why I think it's good news.
Yeah, that's actually very good news, and it's because of, in the end of the day, it's about innovation. It's about the cultural development, and everyone should be able to license works and use them in the future, and step on the knowledge that's been developed in the past. So yeah, as a next step, we're gonna move on to the music industry, where I'm very passionate about. So how copyright works in terms of collaboration in music? There are different sorts of rights. There is copyright, which is attributed to the composer and the writer and the music publisher, and then you have related rights, which are again copyright, which are attributed to performer, studio producer, and record label. So what's the difference now? I'm going to explain. The composer and the lyric writer are writing a song. Then they take this song to the music publisher. Music publisher is a company which would, you've seen that P circled logo on a CD sometimes. You see copyright, C in circle and P in circle, company name. So the music publisher is a company which works with copyright only, not related rights. And their purpose is to publish the artistic work. How? This can be on paper, it can be as a recording. So here it comes the relation between the music publisher and the record label. The music publisher is granting the record labels the rights of the composer and the lyric writer to record that particular work. In the music industry, it's considered a conflict of interest if one body is holding both rights, because literally the record label is user of the copyright, in the same way as the television, the radio is a user of the copyright. The record label is responsible to organize the recording, so they have a record deal with the performer. So they go to the studio producer and they record the work. But in order to use that record, you need authorization from all parties here. In general, it's accepted that composer, lyric writer are exclusively granting their rights to the music publisher, and then only the music publisher is signing agreements and licensing. And it looks complicated, I know, but in the end of the day it can get even more complicated. If you have two composers, one lyric writer, each one of them have their separate music publisher. So in order to use this work, you have to obtain authorization from 3 music publishers before you even record it. And for example, if you take Madonna or Kylie Minogue,
I have given up using that kind of music.
no, there is a way.
Go on.
You have the record labels, but then you have even more, because this, for example, song that's recorded on a music video already. So you have video director, you have screenwriter, you have choreographer, you have some guitarist who came and recorded in the recording. Each one of them owns the rights to their contribution of that work. And the thing is, even if one does not agree, you cannot use the whole thing. It's not, you cannot ask the one who has the biggest share, can I use this work? No, you have to ask everyone. Even if this contribution is just 1%, you cannot use the music video unless you cut off the choreography, or even you cannot cut off, because one of the main rights under copyright to the author is that they have the right for their work to remain unaltered. There is a set of rights that they have. So if I'm a choreographer, I participated in a music video and I work together with a screenwriter on the screenplay of this music video, and one day the producer says, I'm not going to pay the choreographer for that, too much, too expensive, I'm going to cut them off. They can go to court and say the screenwriter wrote the screenplay based on my idea for choreography, so this cannot be separated, cannot be excluded. This is why you cannot take the lyrics of Michael Jackson or Beatles and use just the lyrics without the music, or use the music without the lyrics. You cannot do these things. So in order to avoid a lot of admin burden, how is the music industry organized? We have the CMOs. This is collective management organizations. This is non-for-profit. No, they're for-profit, but in private purpose. They're not generating profit for themselves. Everything that they collect, they distribute to their members. So members creators, right holders, can become members of a CMO. I'm a member of a few in my quality as a composer and songwriter, and separately in my quality as a performer, because I sometimes perform. You can hold different rights, not only one type of rights. So basically, the CMOs are licensing their entire repertoire to television, radios, and internet portals. So how this works is in every country in the world, absolutely everyone, you have CMOs for each type of copyright and related rights.
What about North Korea?
I'm sure you have a mechanism. Even during the communism in Bulgaria, there was such a body in Bulgaria.
Yeah, the communism in Bulgaria wasn't real. I mean,
Yeah.
that hard communism
Not like in
North
Russia.
But
Korea.
still, this was organized. There was a bureau where authors and different right holders could collect. So these societies, they work in. They're usually NGOs. They have different legal forms. In the UK, they are limited companies, but they still that don't realize profit for themselves. They work in a network. So, for example, if I'm a Bulgarian and I'm a member of the Bulgarian Society and my music is broadcast in the UK, the UK Society is collecting the money and sending them to the Bulgarian Society for me. They work in a network. And they work in a network even for the digital distribution. For example, if I'm a Bulgarian, I upload my video on YouTube, which is monetized, and someone in Japan plays it. YouTube is paying the royalties to the society in Japan, and the Japanese society is paying the money to my CMO, which is paying me the royalties once or twice a year, usually.
Sometimes we upload some Zumba choreographies on our stories,
Yeah.
Instagram stories. It says there's a warning. It says that the countries listed below cannot listen to those kind of
Music,
songs. Yeah.
yes.
There are a lot of countries. If you do not delete, it is going to be deleted from
Exactly,
your Instagram on
exactly.
behalf of you.
And that's because the CMOs, they have not licensed to Instagram for these
Especially
territories.
Russia is at the beginning of the
Yes, we're just starting to have this issue right now, but
How do they detect this?
I will explain. I have a slide for
Okay.
that. Yeah.
These are all what I wonder about.
But in general, in your countries, you have SACEM in France, which is for composers and writers. Adami, you have. This is a non-explicit list. There are more and more and more. Adami are for performers, for example, singers, choreographers, and also dubbing actors. Because in France, you have a lot of movies where the original voice of the actor was replaced with a dubbing actor. So this dubbing actor also has copyright to the related rights to the movie. In Spain, you see, and in Bulgaria. So this non-explicit list, usually a couple of years ago, each one of these organizations was a monopolist. Basically, they were given the rights from each one of the governments to distribute the music or the repertoire exclusively. However, with recent changes of the European Union's directives, now you can have smaller organizations and everyone can create their own organization with a group of artists can create their own organization, provided that they register it and that they work in network with the rest of the organizations. There are very strict rules about how the royalties are accounted for, at what periods they have to be paid out, and so on. So there is strict regulation. And here's actually the right time to mention that we are quite quite lucky because in Europe we have the most sophisticated and the most advanced copyright system in the world, compared to America, where the rights of the performers are not that well protected. For example, what I can mention here in France, you have Adami, which is collecting royalties from radios, television, internet, and paying it out to performers, to singers, to choreographers. In America, performers are not receiving remuneration currently from broadcast, because in America they consider, oh, you're a performer, I'm broadcasting you, or this is advertisement for you. You're doing it just for the exposure, you're not doing it for the royalties. So yeah, we have to praise our legislation, because even though it's still imperfect from my perspective as a rights holder, it's the most sophisticated and the most advanced in the entire world. As I said, writing music and being great artist is not enough. It will remain a hobby if you don't think about all these things that we spoke about. If you don't familiarize yourself with copyright, if you're not protecting your copyright, if you're not conscious about what you're entitled to get, you'll remain a hobbyist. So then it's very, very important to be conscious about these things. So I've identified a few challenges which we are facing as artists nowadays, especially in the digital age. We are slowly moving to the second part of my presentation. There are a few challenges because it gets very, very legal. Everything is so difficult and administrative. At the same time, it's getting very digital, which is another obstacle. So the first challenge that we have is the admin of copyright. Simply, 90% of the great artists that I know, they're not familiar with their copyright. And the better artist is, the less they care about the real world. They're flying in the clouds, they love their art, they love their music, and they don't care about their copyright. And respectively, they cannot really make a profit out of it, and they cannot reinvest, and eventually they don't live the life that they are entitled to live. That's the first challenge, the admin of the copyright. Then I wanted to talk about transfer of value, because it is a very important topic in the creative industry nowadays. The European Union recently made a new legislation trying to address the transfer of value. So transfer of value is a term used to describe the way in which the value of creative works is being shifted away from creators and given in the hands of the digital service providers such as Facebook, YouTube, and Google. And that is a very, very big issue, because Facebook and Google and YouTube, they don't generate creative intellectual property. They rather use intellectual property. But in their hands, they also have the advertising. So they monetize this content, this intellectual property, without paying a fair share to performers. They're multi-billion corporations generating a lot of profit, and they don't pay enough money. And this year, actually, in the UK, a new step was taken with the legislation. As you may be familiar, the Queen is opening the Parliament sessions each time there. So she promised that the giants Google and Facebook will start even paying news media's outlets, because they also have copyrights, news articles. They have writer, they have a photographer. So Facebook and Google will soon have to pay for using news articles, photographies, including Google. When you search for something, you see a list of results, photographies, thumbnails. They will need to start paying for this copyright
For
use.
each one.
For each one.
Oh my.
For each one, because they use the copyrights.
And they sell advertising.
And they sell advertising and they generate profit with it, and that's their business. They're using copyright for profit, so they have to start paying for every use, even for listing the results, even for listing the thumbnail. Yes, they will have to.
Even if you don't click on it?
It's on your screen, you see it.
Oh my.
They use it, it's not you.
It's
Not
not
you.
you.
It's not you
Google
who
pay.
pay. Google has to pay because they generate profit. This is their business, and they have to pay. But right now we have this transfer of value, which is due to delayed legislation. Basically, the European Union did not really actualize the legislation on time. And before the digital age, the major record labels were complaining about piracy, piracy, piracy. Everyone's downloading torrents, MP3s on the internet. We no longer have this problem. Nobody wants to download files. They can stream it instead. So they spent so many years fighting digital piracy instead of finding the streaming models to actually align to the new reality. And this is where we are now. The giants, Facebook, Google, they started benefiting from this. And there are a few changes that are coming. But transfer of value is a big issue, because if you compare the income, for example, which I used to take from album sale or a compilation sale, let's say in France or in Spain. I had many releases with Universal where my song was included in a compilation, CD compilation. So if you compare the sales from the CD and the money that I took from streaming, let's say on Spotify, you can't compare it. It's very, very low. So it seems like Spotify is still not paying a fair share. Google, YouTube, they're still not paying a fair share of their profits to the content creators, which is the main content that they use, because they don't generate content. They don't invest in content. They're just a media, yeah. They're just using content, yeah.
That was something that I wanted to add, that there is no more piracy because it's very cheap to make, to use YouTube.
YouTube, yeah, absolutely.
And to play, even to make, to have a Spotify now.
Yeah,
It's
it's for
cheap.
free.
Some
You just
people
listen to adverts.
Yeah, but if you really want to pay, it's I don't know, it's about €8 per month or something like this, which is nothing.
It's nothing. It's cheap. They earn a lot from advertisement. At the same time, 1,000 streams on YouTube is under $1 for the creator, and he has to split this with other authors, with performer, with. So basically, it's very, very cheap, and even if you have 1 million streams on YouTube, you get $900, for example, if you own the entire thing, which is very, very small amounts compared to if you have 1 million broadcast on the radio, 1 million sales on CD, you get a different number.
This is why I just want to note something here. As we have already talked with you and with Joro and with other colleagues, that live performances and festivals and concerts are the real value that brings to the artists and to the performers and to the people that are creating the content. And this is why I think Live Artist Platform is very much on place, because it will stimulate the organization of these events and will intervene through providing an online audience in addition to the offline audience. and I think it's
Absolutely, every new model right now
it's a
is
solution.
welcomed, and
It's a
that's
solution.
because you will avoid using those giant platforms that
Right.
will generate the profit and take away from the artist.
Right.
That you have exactly addressed the transfer value, this gap of payment
Right.
that's existing
Yeah,
there.
yeah, it has its own challenges because if I want, if I have time now to add something, or
Of
maybe
course,
after,
yeah.
or maybe after you finish.
No, if that's what we're talking
Yeah, that's
about.
linked
yeah.
with,
If
with
it's
what
linked,
you
yeah.
have said to now. We had some challenges with Jora and are still in the process of having a solution for these challenges, including the streaming platform that we're going to use to stream the concert on Friday.
The streaming provider.
The streaming provider,
Yes.
right? I mean, this is the instrument that stands between us as a output of the
Platform.
signal, of the video signal from the concert, and the platform and the viewers in the platform. So we need this streaming provider. So while searching for solutions, we understood that we cannot use YouTube. We cannot use any other streaming providers like YouTube, like there are maybe about 50 types of streaming providers, because they have bots, which are going to detect that
Yeah, I'm going to speak about that.
we are playing a copyrighted music. Although we have contracts with those CMOs, we have contracts with them. We are paying the copyrights. I mean, we have contracts with the performers themselves, but the CMOs, I have talked with them, they don't have administrative rights. They are not administrators in YouTube, so that they can whitelist our channel,
Yeah.
and that we're not cut off from the streaming. So that's why we are using independent software providers who are supporting us now for the streaming, and they have absolutely nothing with YouTube and streaming.
That's the way, yeah, that's the
And
way.
that's
I'm
the
going
only
to touch
way.
on that as
That's
well.
the only way of walking around, around this problem.
Yeah.
And I don't know how is it. What's the solution for this? Because we are not breaching the rights, the copyrights. We have contracts. We are paying, and at the same time,
You are unable to
we
use
can't use the existing solution.
infrastructure, no.
Yeah.
You need to create a new infrastructure, that's
We are
the thing.
creating
Yeah, that's what you're
currently,
doing, yeah.
currently
Yeah.
different infrastructure, which will be only solely for the live artists
Yeah.
that we use. So I just want to let the partners know about this, because it's a very important issue, and I'm happy that we have.
I'm going to touch on that because exactly this is where we arrived in my presentation. There is a very complex infrastructure nowadays in the world, in the digital world, for admin of copyright. You have identifiers, you have databases, and you have exchange standards. So identifiers are basically unique ID numbers and digits, which stands for International Sound Recording Code. So each sound recording in the world is assigned ISRC nowadays. So each song, and if not a song, but each recording, because for example you can have Madonna Frozen original, Madonna Frozen remix, Madonna Frozen another remix. Each one of them will hold a separate ISRC, and that's how it's identified for the purpose of royalties and copyright management. Then you have the ISWC, which is again the work, the composition and the lyrics without the recording, because we already spoke that a musical composition, music, a song, can exist even before it's being recorded. It can exist on paper as an idea. So ISWC is for that. You have IPI. Each person who is creating music or any content in the world is assigned interested party identificator. So I'm assigned one as well. Then you have ISWC, which is the international database for works, for copyright, for musical works. Each of these CMOs works with these standards that you see listed. ICE is again international database, but it's not as widely adopted. It works mainly in UK and Sweden. It's developed by the CMOs of UK and Sweden. The interesting thing about it is that not only registering the music, the assets, the sound recordings, but it's also recording the licensing transactions, which means that, for example, if one producer transfers their rights to a new producer, this will be recorded in the ICE database. Then you have exchange standards, which I'm going to talk about next, which is one of the biggest challenges nowadays in the world. These are DDEX and MEAD, both developed in America in this non-for-profit standardization organization, where all the giants such as YouTube, Google, Universal, Warner, they sit together and they define the standards. And these standards are very inaccessible for small creators. I feel that the creative economy will struggle with that in the near future, and that's because there is not sufficient access to the digital supply chain to small creators. I'm sure that some small creators can create genial work. They can create amazing music, amazing movies, but nowadays, without having access to the digital supply chain, they wouldn't be able to go further. What is as equally important as the creation, as the music itself, is the metadata. What is metadata?
Embed code.
Yeah, I've given an example how a part of the DDEX standard looks. DDEX standard, I have one next graph, to show how the metadata is transferred between providers. But with the metadata is simply said the information that used to be printed on a CD artwork. When you open the paper body of a CD, you can see who is the composer, who is the writer, who is the singer, where it was recorded, which studio, who is the producer, record label, music publisher, and so on. Very long credit for one single recording. This is now organized in a new format called DDEX. That's the standard, which is widely adopted by YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, Universal, and Warner. And why is this? And because they want to be able to distribute their catalog with one click of the mouse. So, for example, when Universal says, I'm licensing this repertoire to Spotify, they're injecting it automatically on the servers using this choreography. They call this choreography. They call it choreography because the servers are performing choreography and they're interacting between each other. Once the data is received, then it's acknowledged, and this is saving them times because they can take it down. If the license is over, we can say we're taking down this, that, and that with one click. But they have their own software. There's no software which is available for small creators like me. If I want to automatically inject my catalog here and there and there, I need to develop my own software. Otherwise, I need to enter the information about every song every time manually. And I can tell you that most of my colleagues who are incredible musicians, they cannot enter the ISRC code, enter the ISWC code. They don't have these codes. They don't know what to do. Basically, they cannot make it without an interface, and there is not an interface. So how is that metadata moved across the industry? This is not the tube map of London Underground. This is this is how the metadata is moved across the industry. And here they're a bit dreaming, because I can tell you that very limited softwares for audio production has the ability to capture metadata at the studio stage, but this what they currently DDEX are trying to develop. They're trying to collect the metadata during the recording process. For example, I have a singer, and on the multi-track of the recording software, I type their credentials. Then a guitar player comes, on the multi-track of the software, I type their credentials. So together with the audio, the metadata would move to different users. For example, we can see company A, company B, they're transferring it directly, but from studio mixing to mastering, then goes to verification and archives, and this is how the studio is keeping it. But then from the studio, it goes to the record company is sending the information to the music author, and then it reaches eventually the CMOs. DSP, we mean the digital service providers such as Spotify, YouTube, and so on. So this element here is not well developed. I can tell you that currently there are very, very little amount of softwares who are able to capture the copyright during the recording process. This is still a very manual work, which is now happening somewhere here between the studio and the record company, like there. So yeah, this is the protocol DDEX, this XML code that I showed. And this is how it's distributed across the industry, and that's all very challenging. It gets very technical. It looks like with just a simply genius idea, you'll still reach nowhere, because in a way, if you don't use the proper metadata, for example, I record a song on my computer, but I don't type the name of the song, I don't type the name of the artist, and I upload it in YouTube. Nobody's gonna find it, because when you go on Google, when you go on YouTube, the metadata is the one that's connecting the content to the context of your search. Without the metadata, the content will not be attached to the context of the search, and that's very challenging. So it takes a lot of knowledge for an author or a performer to distribute that easily, and most of the cases they can't really do it that easy. Most of my colleagues are very devastated with that. So MEAD is addition to the DDEX metadata. This is metadata simply that is not a main part of the main metadata. This is media enrichment and description. So this enables communication of different range of metadata that can be used for marketing. For example, if you say, Alexa, play the latest song by Billy Idol or Madonna. The latest song by Madonna may not be the most actual single of Madonna, but the one that is being promoted. So MEAD supports over 30 different mechanisms to enrich the description of each track. They capture mood. Is this happy? Is this sad? For example, Alexa, play a sad song, or Alexa, create a playlist of happy club music. This all contained in that secondary MEAD standard that's in addition to DDEX. So it's very important because it also contains journalistic materials such as interviews, press releases for the single, the music or the album, lyrics of musical recordings which are not contained in the previous DDEX. So then you can contextually search the lyrics. Oh, Google. Fetch the song that says da, 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 and you can quote the lyrics and this will return. If you don't create this sort of passport to each recording, to each work, the work is not integrated into the digital supply chain, which is a main issue. And DDEX are expecting that this standard will evolve in the next couple of years. It will develop even more and to address the consumption needs of the audience. The audience will, they'll get even more lazy. They'll speak to their voice assistant or something. They'll want to get the right information. So this is something which will be developed a lot. It will also contain historical chart positions of singles. They say nicknames of artists. For example, one artist like Jennifer Lopez, but she's also J-Lo. So these things are contained in MEAD. And
What is your nickname?
I have a few. So as a composer, you know, my real name is Miro. That's how my passport is. But then, actually, my passport is Miroslav Gechev. Then I have Miro Gechev as like a short nickname to my real name. But I also have Miro G.
Yeah.
I have a band called Star Tattooed. So there are many, and this needs to be communicated with the MEAD standard.
Something like hashtags.
Yeah, but more sophisticated. Yeah, more sophisticated. Yeah, exactly like hashtags. Exactly the same principle. And something that we already spoke about is the YouTube logo. As you can see, property of Google Corporation, Alphabet Inc. Content ID is exactly what Albena spoke about. This is and what you exactly spoke about. This is the detection mechanism of Instagram. It's shared, actually.
Mechanism a bot or so?
It's a bot. Yeah, it's a bot. As a creator, I license my music to YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, and so on. Users are free to use them in stories. Stories are monetized. There are sometimes adverts appearing in stories. So if you use my music in a story on Instagram, from the music widget, not from recording, it will get monetized. But if you record it somewhere, the system will detect it and will say this is copyrighted, and they'll take it down immediately.
Sometimes after a year or so they say that this kind of material cannot be used, you should delete it from your newsfeed.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
after many years.
Yeah.
I say, why?
Yeah. So the system is not perfect. It's automatic bot. It takes a fingerprint of each recording, each sound recording, and detects it and take it down. Depending on the will of the copyright holders, it can block it, as in your case. Other option would be to monetize it. For example, they can leave it on your channel, but they will get the revenue from your adverts. And they can also track how it is used, so the challenge here is that YouTube is only granting access to content ID to very big right holders with a lot of views, a lot of repertoire, a lot of content on their hands. They need to be very substantial to the industry so that they give you access to that platform so that you can protect your copyright. For me, I had cases where actually my official channel content, which I own, was blocked by mistake from Universal. Let's say Universal France, they forgot to check just France. and they blocked it worldwide, and then it's mine, but I don't have ways to communicate this with Google. They don't have ways to correct the mistake as well. So the system is digital, analog, very imperfect, very, very imperfect. And they're even very funny. I found this article on the internet where YouTube automated takedown tool claims purring cat is stealing content. So basically, the user who actually had million views on that, because people like to listen to purring cats and fall asleep. User actually uploaded it and was there for some period of time until Content ID pulled it down and said that this is a track owned by EMI Records and the track was called Focus.
By the cat.
Who knows? So obviously the system is very imperfect and is designed to be in use to very, very large corporations. And contrary to all the principles in law, the claiming party can take it down before proving that they own it. It's up to that's contrary to the law, to the law principles. Instead of them proving that this user it violated EMI's copyright, they took it down and asked the user to prove that they own the content. It should be, I believe, in my humble opinion, I believe it should be the opposite way around. Basically, if they want to claim, they have to prove ownership and then has the right to take this down. But unfortunately, it's not how it works nowadays. And so how we can overcome these challenges? I can have a separate
Delete the video.
Well, there are many ways. I can have like a separate lecture on that subject, but in general,
you will have the chance for it.
yeah. Basically, I have a few ideas which I would like to share with you. One of them is to include the blockchain technology into the music industry. The blockchain technology, you're familiar, Bitcoin and this sort of blockchain protection, the principle of blockchain can be applied to copyright, and the financial industry is widely adopting the blockchain, but not yet the music and the entertainment industry in general. Another thing is to have softwares and interfaces for metadata that are accessible to small rights holders. This is very, very important for them to be able to connect their content to the digital supply chain. And another very important aspect would be to teach copyright at schools at very early age, and I believe that this would be something which would encourage creativity and will encourage young students to become more conscious about copyright and the power of copyright, because as I started this presentation, I was only 14 years old when they told me, oh, did you collect your money from copyright? And I was like, oh, copyright. And then I realized, oh, okay, I can make a living of that. So if one song is earning me that much money from one broadcast, imagine if I have 1,000, I can actually make a living of that. So I believe that kids can be encouraged to get into the creative industries by being taught about copyright at a very early age. And one thing which I'm strongly encouraging you to do from the position of your organizations that you're representing is participate in public consultations with the European Union, and that's one thing that I'm always doing. Unfortunately, not many people from this particular Bulgarian member state were doing in the past, but the public consultations are a very powerful tool to express our opinion for the future of this legislation, no matter whether this is from the position of your organization or simply from the perspective of you as individual users. For for example, there was a public consultation of the European Union where I mentioned that from the UK I cannot stream the Bulgarian national television, although I'm paying my tax in Bulgaria. I should have access to that, and the Bulgarian national television says, oh, but we have a lot of content that we cannot broadcast in the UK and we cannot stream in the UK. For example, this movie we have only licensed for Bulgaria. And then I said, okay, but you can then stop the stream just for that movie and restart the stream when you broadcast news, for example, because the public media should be accessible. So as a user, as a consumer of intellectual property, it's also important to participate in the public consultations, because, as I've said, all the suggestions are considered. I've seen suggestions which I've made to the European Union by participating in such public consultations. I've seen them implemented in directives. And then it's very, very important to raise our voice whenever we can in terms of copyright, because that's the foundation of the economy in a way. Patents, industrial design, this all copyright. So in order to keep and protect the position of the European Union globally, we must have the consciousness about these things. So. Saying that's the end of the presentation. I wouldn't like to get even deeper than that, because I could tell that the last part was a bit heavy with all the metadata and stuff, but I hope you managed to gather some useful ideas today, and yeah, if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer. No questions. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
It was a very good presentation.
Thank you.
Very fruitful for
Thank
me,
you.
especially.
Thank you. I'm so glad to hear
because
that.
I'm in a dance sector also.
Yes, so you're a copyright owner with your choreography.
I couldn't put a finger on it. Why they want me to do like my video, so I got it.
That's because of the music that you're using.
Yeah.
That's because of the music.
I just want to ask another
Of
thing.
course, yeah.
Sometimes some choreographic musics are allowed to be broadcast as in full form, but sometimes you cannot go further 50 minutes, just
Okay.
50 or 55 minutes. Is it something related to content ID again? Not full forms of a choreography, but just 1 minute.
When you say a broadcast, do you mean
You share it. Sharing it, yeah.
this is specific to the right holders. How it's used on the internet is decided on an individual basis by the particular rights holder.
Only just part.
So
we can
it
use.
seems like the ones that you're trying to use, they only allowed to use your part, and that's what the setting that they selected
Yes,
when
they
they.
put a limitation. For
Yeah.
example, if I want to share reels,
Yeah.
they don't allow me to share.
Yeah,
They
so
just
that's-
say,
that's
you should
up
cap
to
the
the-
period, cap the reaction.
As I already said, it's a private property here, so it's up to them to decide. Even if they want to take it down and say nobody should listen to my music anymore, you have the right to remove your own music from the internet. In the past, in Bulgaria, when we did not have the streaming platforms yet, we had the CDs, and people wanted to buy less popular bands, but nobody was importing these bands in Bulgaria, because the record labels weren't interested to distribute their music in such a small market, and people were downloading them from the torrents, and they say, what other option you're giving me? I want to buy the CD, but I cannot. They have the right to say that as consumers, but also it's up to the owners to say, I don't want to sell in Bulgaria, or I don't want to have this song published anymore at all. I want to take it down. So yeah, a lot of people say, oh, copyright is an obstacle. Copyright is an obstacle. Copyright is an obstacle. But we must recognize this private ownership right, and it's up to the rights holder to say whether you will be driving my car or not. it's my car, I can give it to you, or I may not. And you cannot say, oh, but how am I going to drive Ferrari? No, you cannot drive Ferrari, it's my Ferrari. So, yeah, that's the foundation is that it's a private ownership right.
Thanks.
No
Yeah,
worries.
just as a comment to what you said about the education, the educational component of copyrights. And I think that copyrights is just standing in the mixed, in the merged field of culture and education, where we as organizations are trying to intervene positively. And that's why I think that this is something that we need to think more about the future possibilities to find funding to make projects because it could be also part of our plans to develop a European network for these issues. It could be a European cultural network for digital, I don't know, support for the artists, something like this.
There is a need, an urgent need for such a network across Europe.
And this network could intervene in the field of education, not only school education, but also in adult education, where we are now, our project is now developing, as well as the public consultations work. Because I also think this is very important.
Very, very important because the European Commission, they don't know how.
Right. And it's not only the European Commission, it's also the national authorities in the member states because, for instance, here in Bulgaria, currently there is a process going on about editing the educational programs for the university for the Masters of Law. Because until now, the students in law in Bulgaria, I have studied law and graduated law, the copyrights and the intellectual property protection was not an obligatory subject for the students in law. So you can imagine how much is the culture developed even in the professionals, in the legal professionals in the country. And now our Ministry of Education is suggesting that the studying hours in copyright and intellectual property protection should be made obligatory and should
that's
be,
amazing.
yeah, and should be as much hours as almost the administrative law and civil rights law, which
That's
is
amazing.
one of the biggest subjects in the study of law, because
That's in a university.
in the university, because they have admitted that copyright is already having a very big economic
Of course, that's
influence
driving
to the
every
economy.
industry.
Yeah, and it is almost as big as the owning a property.
It's
you know, owning a
protecting
company.
patents.
Yeah,
This
and
can be a
that's
whole
why-
factory for a different activity than
Yeah.
creative, but they have patents, they have software,
Yeah.
which is again protected by.
Industrial property rights and
Yeah.
things like this. So yes, it is already admitted that this is a very big economic issue.
It's not an exotic.
Yeah, it's
anymore.
not any more exotic, and
Yeah.
that's why we can also intervene in that type of public dialogue.
Yes, absolutely.
Not only on European but also on national level. And work with schools, work with universities, and
Yeah, specifically in schools, I believe it will be very beneficial for young students. Also in England, I can give an example. It's very strict when you write an essay at school. When you provide this essay to the school, this is checked by a software for plagiarism. And whoever plagiarized their essay is being penalized. So in England, they already have a very well-developed system in the schools and university in terms of plagiarism. So some foundation of copyright is already given to students, but I believe a bit in-depth education for the young people would be very, very beneficial.
yeah, and a focused education and skills and lectures like this for the creative sector,
Yeah.
for the artists, for the direct users and beneficiaries of the copyrights, because they need to know
They need to
what to do,
build
what are their
consciousness.
rights, how they protect them, and
Most of my colleagues
Yeah.
are very amazing creators, and they cannot get deep into the topic. They're all about creativity, and
Yeah.
nowadays you have to think about all the different aspects.
so
I'm sorry. At Article, before starting the project at the beginning of the term, I, as a project coordinator of Article, teach students media literacy, but not that much detail. By the way, I just want to take the photo of your notes.
Oh, of course, I can give you the presentation.
Could you please send me?
no,
Because it
you
is
will
very
have everything. You will have his presentation, you will have his notes, you will
Okay.
have Angie's
I want to
presentation
share
from
this
yesterday.
kind of information with my
Of
students
course, yeah, I'll be happy to
before
share
starting
that,
a project.
That's the purpose of
Because
that.
I used to have limited information about these, how to be smart on the internet, what media literacy is, but these were so limited information given to my students by me.
Yeah.
But from that point on, I
Glad
can
it was
use that
useful.
presentation
Of
for the
course you can.
students.
Of course you can. I'll be more than
Thanks.
happy to share it with you and your students, definitely.
Yeah, and Ivan reminded me. I told you at the beginning we'll have the recording of Miro's lecture on our website, so you can invite your students to watch this lecture.
Yes, I can do
This
it.
will be the perfect way. so
Yeah, I will do it.
This is why Joro is shooting so seriously on that. You will be on
In
this
that way, they will
recording.
go to practice their language. This is a listening
As
activity.
well, yeah. And I noticed that you're talking about your organization, but you're also part of culture.
No, I meant your organizations.
Why?
I mean,
Because we are happy now with Miro to start a new project, and Ivan and Jora, our colleagues here, about
upskilling
Yes.
performers in the digital age. We start that with in 1 week time, 10 days
in
time.
1 week we're
We're
looking.
partnering with University of Istanbul and their media department, so we're gonna have two professors from there helping us to find ways to upskill performers in the digital age and how we can overcome the obstacles and challenges that I
Yeah.
spoke about in terms of metadata and
And
digital
we'll
standards.
focus on the exchange standard DDEX mostly,
Yeah.
and those type of digital challenges that the performers are facing. And we're also establishing a competence center for the digital transformation in the sector, where our objective, our aim and our vision is to upload and develop educational resources database for those people, and we will also develop that type of projects in the future for this type of issues. We have also ideas for making a mobile application for supporting them to enter their metadata and
And we wanted to develop the back end and
Yeah,
then
back
to
end.
adapt this back end logic of the software into not just app, not just website, but also voice assistant. Hey Alexa, I wrote a new song. Oh, what's the title of it? And then you say it's called Hot Summer. Okay, I'm gonna record that. And who wrote the lyrics? Me. Okay, you wrote the lyrics. Who wrote the music? And so Alexa can capture the metadata information in a dialogue. You
Yeah.
don't feel that we're gonna pretend.
His idea. Yes, so you will all be invited to be participants in these plans, in these projects, because you are now already part of our network, partnership network. So yeah, that's just a note for the future.
Yeah, so.
Any other questions?
Fully welcome.
Shall we start with another lecture?
Well, it's very interesting. I mean, you were amazing.
Thank you, thank
you
you.
very much.
I hope it wasn't boring at some point, but I really wanted to speak about the digital challenges and that's something which is the main challenge nowadays, the most boring one as well.
No, it wasn't boring at all.
It
Yeah.
wasn't for me either.
Oh yeah, no, at all.
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
I have
You're
listened
so
to you
kind.
for all my years.
yeah,
You're
yeah.
so kind.
Yeah.
Yeah, what about you guys?
This is intimate expressions, you know
Very
it.
good, nice.
I'm glad to do that. Glad
Yeah.
to do that.
I'm also happy to work with you, Miro. and
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here as well, to share my
to-
experience.
Yeah, to have the opportunity.
Yeah,
to-
thank you for the trust and for having me here. It's great to be here. The other night was really nice with you all in the restaurant now,
Yeah,
to be able to see you here as well.
yeah. I know Miro from a small kid.
Yeah, we used to sing together the children's choir to Bulgarian National Radio.
Yeah,
So from very, very small kids.
we have traveled around the world, Japan, the US,
Hawaii.
Hawaii, and
Yeah.
Europe.
Yeah,
A lot.
yeah.
Okay, thank you again.
You're most welcome. Thanks for having me.